What's going on, everybody? It is TripleCrown24 back today with a new card show recap video. Once again in Xenia, Ohio for the monthly Xenia card show at the fairgrounds. This is the largest ever installment of the show. I believe it ended up being 230 tables, which I think the first time I was going to it was like 110, 120 tables. So it's just really cool to see a show grow like that, any show for that matter, but especially this one, as that second building is filled out now, where it was pretty much wall to wall. In fact, I was on the very back wall set up this time, which I typically don't set up at Xenia. I really love just walking around more just because there's so much to look at, but I decided that I would give it a go. And I've had some really strong sales shows as of late. This one, pretty much the same. I crushed my sales goal for the day and actually did well enough selling out my bulk boxes and my value boxes, where I decided to just pack up what was left at the end of the 2 o'clock hour and spend the final hour just walking around, seeing if I could buy some things, and that ended up working out well as well. So overall, a very successful show, and let me show you what I got. So in that final hour, like I said, I did walk around a bit. I found a gentleman who was set up for the first time, and he had a $2 box where he told me that if I built a large enough stack, he would sell these cards to me at $1 a piece. So I asked him how big of a stack would I need to make to get to that point, and he said at least 10 cards. So I thought, all right, I'm pretty sure I can get to at least 10 cards. Just going through the first few, found quite a few right away. There was some good value in the box, so I ended up building a stack of 20 cards. Most of them will go off the COMC. I have a couple little stragglers here that aren't going to make the cut, so what I will do is just put them back into my own dollar boxes and put them back out there, kind of a catch and release situation. And then I've got one or two that I will probably random act of kindness PWE style to some collectors out there, including this one, Kyler Murray from this year's Classics. It's a Timeless Tributes Blue, 125 of 125. I'm showing this one off just to give you kind of an idea of what I am looking for in a lot of these boxes. So I have a couple of criteria in mind. The first one is that I want to send in something that's not going to get a condition note or a condition qualifier on it when I send it to COMC. So I don't want it to come back as excellent to near mint, and I don't want any condition notes on the card when I send it in. If it's a ultra modern card, if it's a set that's a bit more sensitive, or a set that is older, perhaps a vintage set, or just something that is, maybe from the 80s or 90s as well, I'm a bit more lenient with those. But for the most part, really try to limit that. And then also I'm thinking in my head, what is the price point per card? Add on the 50-cent processing fee with COMC. And ideally, I want to be doubling my money on these, just because of the time that I'm putting into it, both getting the submissions ready to send off, waiting for them to be processed, and then also putting them up on the site, with the notion that some of these probably won't sell right away. I want to make sure that I'm, at least in theory, going to double my money on a lot of these. So that is usually the game plan when I'm looking for stuff like that. So that was a nice little stack to build. Before I even got to kind of explore the show floor, I did make a couple of partial cash, partial trade type of deals. One of them was with a fellow dealer. He took my Lamar Jackson gold mosaic off my hands, and I gotta tell you, I haven't seen a quarterback that people have turned on faster than Lamar Jackson. His whole contract situation and the injury that he had towards the end of the season has really turned off a lot of people. It seems like a lot of his fans too have been like very disenfranchised, I guess is the best word to describe it, with his cards, given kind of how he's behaved towards the Ravens. That whole situation is a bit of a mess. So I hope for their sake they figure it out. But regardless, it was a card that I bought that I wasn't 100% confident in, and I was just kind of happy to move on to it from something that I am definitely confident in, and that would be this right here. It's a 71 Topps Hammer and Hank Aaron. Really solid centering on this card. In fact, the edges are good too. You can see there's some whitening. I mean, this thing isn't perfect, of course, but this is a great looking example of this card. What do I think it will grade? I would guess like a 3 or a 4, and that's kind of where it was priced at. If it came back a low enough grade, I would probably just keep it. So this is one that I'm going to decide what to do with, but I was just happy to kind of move on from the Lamar and get a nice Hank Aaron playing days card instead of that. So that was nice. I did make a trade at my table as well. This was one of the first deals I did at the show. I had my Yao Ming Gold Refractor from 2003 Topps Chrome. A gentleman came up. He was very interested in the card. We kind of talked it over and we made a deal. So one of them was for a Mewtwo card that I did end up selling later that day. It was the Pokemon Go full art one where it's like him in New York City. I've been getting into the Pokemon lately. You'll see a little bit more of it here in a minute. So that one was one that I had a feeling would move pretty quickly. These two I was not as confident in, but I decided that I would go ahead and take the chance. He was giving me some cash as well, and it was a card that it was part of a deal that I had already made money on to this point. So it allows me to take a bit more of a chance if I want to, or to get some stuff that might be a bit tougher to move just because I've given myself that flexibility. So that's what kind of happened with these two. First one up here is this Hunter Green. This one might seem a bit random. You got to keep in mind I'm in the Cincinnati area, and I got to say for Reds players, very few are sought after. Hunter Green is probably one of the ones that people actually still really pursue, at least probably till he gets traded 4 or 5 years from now. It's just the way the Reds do things. This is the Purple Shimmer first off the line, numbered 7 of 7. It's a 9. I would guess top to bottom centering is what ended up doing this one in. But otherwise, it's a really sharp looking card. So one of those that I figure that it's a low numbered rookie year card of Hunter Green. I would guess that people, in this area will probably be attracted to that. So figured I'd take a chance on it. This one is a guy who I get asked about quite a bit. Whenever I've had his cards out, they usually go pretty quickly. Shout out to Andy. But this is a Josh Giddey Chronicles. Little Phoenix design here on the red, numbered to 149, 100 of 149. And it's PSA 10. Last time I checked, pop 1. So again, if that's your thing on the low pop stuff, and I figured this one would be one that would be an affordable, low population, at least for now, Giddey numbered card, and it hits a lot of the buzzwords of what people seem to want, or at least what I see a lot of people asking for on social media is they're looking for players numbered stuff. They want rookies. They want gradable or in 9s and 10s. They want low pop stuff. Those are all the buzzwords right now. This one kind of checks all those boxes. So it was another one that I figured was worth taking a flyer on. We'll see how it pans out. This isn't the most confident trade I've been in, but when you get some cash and then you get 3 cards kind of to play around with, those are the types of deals that I like making, especially when the pressure of having to make the deal a win is off the board. Why don't we go over to some Pokemon next before I show you kind of the big card. This was a 3-card deal, and a lot of it really hinges on this card here. This is a Sylveon VMAX from Evolving Skies, and these Eevee characters are immensely popular. That is one thing that I have learned very early on here in the Pokemon sphere. Some of you will know, probably most of you will not, that I'm actually working on building a couple of the sets from the recent ones that I've released. And I have to say, I haven't really collected anything in quite some time, I guess, relative to, time in the eyes of a collector. I'm having so much fun with this, and just kind of try to pick up a card every now and then and put it away, or to get some stuff from my binder that I'm working on for the sets. It has been a lot of fun, but I'm also trying to get some of the cards to have out on my table. I have a lot of lower end singles right now that I'm putting out, and they just sell so well. I'm having a lot of luck with it, so I'm going to keep going with it. I know that a lot of the prices on Pokemon stuff kind of crashed after the peak in, I guess it was February of 2 years ago now, or April of 2 years ago now. but it's still as strong as ever. It is still as popular as it ever has been. So I'm really enjoying it. So this one here, again, a really popular character. I think it's kind of a toss-up between a 9 and a 10 if it were to grade out, and thankfully I'm in a position where even if it is a 9, I'm still going to come out ahead on this deal, so that was a plus for me. I did get a Mew, the little pink guy from I think it was from the first movie. Geez, it's probably been like, what, 20 years since I've seen that movie? I feel old now. But the slab, I don't know how this happens, but the guy who they got this from apparently did not take care of his slabs. Not the dealer, but wherever they obtained this from. And this slab was probably one of the most scratched slabs I've ever seen. And I've never really understood that with people who send stuff into PSA. Like, if you're going to spend all this money to get these cards graded and then you get them back in these nice cases, you got to protect the cases. I don't get it. So the case to me, it was scratched a little too much where it was going to be distracting to me. So I ended up moving that one. The plan was originally to keep it. I do really love that card, so I'm probably going to go out and get one that's not all scratched up here at some point in time. But this one will also came with the Sylveon, and the goal will be to make enough on the Sylveon card where I can basically still turn a profit and then be able to keep this card. I'm trying to get better at that because it seems like lately everything that I get gets moved immediately, and some of the things that I want to keep, I'm not ending up keeping. I can't keep everything, of course, and trying to find that balance is sometimes a tall task, but I'm learning, always learning, right? And this one here, it's a first edition holo of Moltres, one of the legendary birds, in a PSA 6. Why did it get a 6? Really? I mean, there's like some little whitening on the corners, but I'm guessing it's probably something with the surface. The holo foil on a lot of these, in fact, I can see it now. There's like a little tiny, I don't know if you guys can see that on the camera there. It's like a little indent almost on the card. That's probably what got it. It's the same reason I see a lot of Panini cards come back as 6s from PSA. It's those little indents that get them. So this one, it just looks cool. It's got a classic look to it. I do love the old school cards. I love the new ones as well. I actually like them all. So, like I said, I'm really enjoying this. This is one that I'm going to put away. It's my first slab, I guess, in my Pokemon collection too. So that's something to be said about that. And then the last one here. This is a gentleman who I've done a couple deals with. He is at a lot of the shows that I'm at. Has some pretty incredible stuff. Knows his stuff really well. And would say that we have similar tastes in a lot of our stuff. And I was actually texting my friend Eric those back pages because whenever I see hockey at a show, I always like to hit him up and show him kind of what people have for hockey, just because it's somewhat of a rare sighting around here. And I was just sending him pictures, and in one of the corners of the pictures, I noticed this card after sending it to him, and I took a look at it. I'm like, I just want to know how much this is. And the dealer told me a price that I was not expecting, even in the slightest. There's only been one sale of this card in the past 2 years, according to TerraPeak, and it was for $50 more than what this guy was asking for it. And when I saw the card, it's one of those, like, at first sight, you're like, I gotta have this. So I thought, you know what? This price makes too much sense. I'm gonna see if maybe I can trade some stuff in. I actually had bought a Troy Polamalu downtown earlier that day that a lot of people had asked me about. I ended up giving it up for the same price that I bought it for in trade value, and then I added the cash to get us to where he needed to be. I thought the price was extremely fair, and this one definitely speaks to the heart a bit. I bet you weren't expecting to see a hockey card, but nonetheless, that's what I'm bringing you today. This is a 2013 Prism, immortalized gold Prism there with the Stanley Cup, a little die cut action, just so sweet looking. PSA 9, and these golds are numbered to 10. It is 9 of 10, which his jersey number was 19, so 9 plus 10 is 19. If that's your thing, then you'll probably find that kind of cool like I did. And thankfully it does have like the plastic in there, but it's not like the baggy look where it doesn't make it look good. The one thing about it, if I have one gripe, I just want to say there's like a little stray fiber here from the edge of where the card was cut at. In fact, there's like a couple of like little tiny fibers that you can probably see. I'm guessing that's just the way that the card came out of the pack. Like there's one down here, there's one over here, there's one over here. It happens quite a bit on these die cut cards, but I wish this one wasn't here because it kind of like stands out. It looks like there's like a little white hair in there or something, but that's not going to take away from the beauty of this card. This is from the only Prism Hockey standalone release. They did do a product called Anthology back in 2012 where there were Prism cards, but in terms of a standalone NHL Prism release, this is the only one out there. And it's a gold of one of the greatest Red Wings of all time, and now our general manager, trusting the hashtag Iser plan. To all my fellow Red Wings fans out there. And the dealer asked me, is this one that's gonna, I bet you this one's not gonna see the light of day again. And I told him, unless someone's willing to offer me the King's ransom, this one's probably not going anywhere. And lately it's kind of been like, yeah, people have offered me the King's ransom on some of these cards, or at least a price that was just too good to pass up. I've had I put it up just to kind of entertain some offers. I haven't gotten anything that has been close to a number that I would consider taking for the card, but I have racked up quite a few watchers on the listing. Again, this is one that I really don't mind holding on to. Of course, I do have to move some cards, but this is one of those that, if push comes to shove, I will just take away some of my budget for the month that I would use to buy some Pokemon for myself or whatever the case may be, and allocate it towards keeping this card if the situation arose where I felt like I could do it 100% because I love it a lot. So I still get that passion for for cards, doing this all this years later. I get that question sometimes, do you ever lose the passion for it? And I mean, there are times where it can be frustrating or you can kind of feel a little bit burned out, but hey, I'm still going. It's coming up on like 3.5 years now that I've been doing this full time, and that passion is still there. So those were the pickups. I think we're going to put Stevie here in the background, kind of as a little display piece here as we go into the recap. Let me tell you a bit about the show floor and what people were asking for. Again, a really diverse show floor, which has kind of become the norm at the Xenia show. There's some vintage dealers. That's probably the one area that maybe it's a little bit lacking. There is a lot of them in the OG building, the primary building where the show's at. But a lot of them, it's kind of a lot of cards that have kind of been there for a while. Some of the dealers constantly have fresh inventory, while some, it seems like it's the same cards over and over and over that I've seen for 5+ years now, going to shows in the area. That's not a knock on the dealers. If they value their cards like that and they're not in a rush to sell them, then hey, that's their choice. They don't have to sell their cards for any certain price, but it is an observation that I will make. And then outside of that, there's usually a supplies guy. There's usually a couple of wax guys there, so that's always cool to have those options as well for those who may not be kind of in an area where they can easily access those things. Also, it's very Bengals and Reds heavy. I don't think that's any surprise if you've listened to any of my Cincy area card show recaps, or even up towards the Dayton area, which is kind of where Xenia is. That won't come as any surprise. I mean, people are passionate about those teams, especially with the Bengals' rise to prominence here in the past few years. There are so many Joe Burrow cards. There are so many Jamar Chase cards, so many T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, anyone you can think of. There's a ton of their cards, it seems, at these shows. But yeah, outside of that, that's kind of the name of the game. And then what was hot? I mean, a lot of people were looking for those guys. A lot of people were looking for the 2 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. Of course, there was a lot of chatter about Mahomes. There was a lot of chatter about Hurts. That's kind of par for the course. I imagine that will probably be the case here as we move into the off season as well. and into draft season. There will be a lot of chatter around those two guys. That's kind of how it was last year with Stafford and Burrow. That's how it was the year before with Brady and Mahomes, and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the gist, if you will, of what people were asking for. What wasn't so hot was baseball. It seems like a lot of the attention on stuff I'm getting for baseball it falls into 3 categories, and that would be vintage, Bowman prospects. It seems like the Bowman people have kind of moved from rookie cards back to Bowman first, and that's kind of been one of the things. And then anything Julio Rodriguez. People love them some J-Rod right about now. So that's kind of where it's been at. Specifically with prospects in my area, again, being Reds country, Ellie De La Cruz is a huge one. I always get asked about his stuff at every single show that I'm set up at without fail. So that's what a lot of people were looking for baseball-wise. But other than that, not a whole lot of love on the baseball side of things. And actually not as much interest in basketball as I've seen in recent times as well. I don't know what exactly contributed to that, but it was definitely less people asking about the basketball that I had than what I have been used to. So, interesting observation there. And then I always like to wrap up with something I liked, something I didn't like, and something that I liked to end the video. So something that I liked, again, just the growth of the show. The promoter does a great job with it. He's always active in the Facebook groups promoting it, and he's grown it now to where it's over 200 tables. It's a fantastic show, and to be able to run a show that size every month as consistently and as well as he does definitely deserves the tip of the cap. So his name is Ken. If Ken were to ever watch this video, hats off to him for sure, because he does a fantastic job. I make sure to tell him that every time I set up and see him. So something that I didn't like, I actually saw a lot of people complaining about this on the Facebook page and for the Ohio sports car groups, I should say. And I wanted to kind of just put it out there in this video, but it's a bit of a show courtesy, I guess is what you could call it. If you are someone who is looking to sell and you have your case with you, like I do, make sure that you put your cards away from the showcases. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, you don't want to be the guy who damages dealers' showcases. Mine have been scratched up from people putting their stuff on my cases, and it's kind of annoying. I have to replace them at this point. It's because I let them put it on there. So that's one thing. Don't put it directly on the glass. If anything, put them on the sides, and always ask for permission. And if you're a dealer, do your best to encourage people to set them off to the side. If you have space on your table where there isn't a showcase, have it put it there, or pull up a chair and put it on the chair and look at it. And if there are people coming up to your table looking for cards, make sure to still acknowledge them. I know it can be difficult. I had people coming up and looking at things while I was talking deals with people who were looking to buy from me, or looking to sell to me or looking to trade with me. It's good to make sure that you still acknowledge those people, because you never know when you're going to maybe miss out on a sale, and you don't want them to feel like, they can't get to your table because someone's trying to sell to you. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that people are bringing cards to sell. I do it all the time, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but those are just kind of little things that some people kind of get turned off with. So again, if you're someone who is bringing cards to sell, try not to put it directly on the dealer's case. Even if they encourage it, try to keep it off to the side. Don't try to monopolize the dealer. I know you want to get a deal done. And then also conversely, if you're a dealer, make sure that their stuff isn't blocking your showcase, and try to acknowledge the people that are there. Those are just, from my experience, my tips, something that works. If you disagree with it, all the power to you. That's just, again, my opinion. So there you go. Disclaimer time there. All right. And then something that I liked to go ahead and wrap up the show is they have a food truck usually either out front or in the back, and the food is always pretty solid. It's a little bit of a different mix. It's kind of like fair style, which is I guess appropriate since we are at a fairgrounds. But the staff that operates the food truck, they are incredibly nice, and I always say, I hope that the card show people always treat the these kind of employees with respect and treat them kindly when they're servicing these shows. And I gotta say, they do a fantastic job doing it. They're very quick with their service. They have a great variety out there. The prices are reasonable, and I gotta say, just hats off to them as well, because they do a great job, and they're kind of sometimes the unsung heroes of the shows. Just because, hey, when you're hungry and you're at a show, there's just not always options there. So, big thank you to those who are with the food truck. So that is it for this show recap. Let me know what you think down below. Talk to you soon. Take care. Stay safe. Be kind.